Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where you're joining us from. Welcome to yet another very interesting workshop by SI Design Hub. Today's workshop is titled as Systems Thinking for Designers, and it is meant to give you hands-on experience of integrating systems thinking ideas in the ideation phase of a design challenge and thus take a holistic approach. So today's workshop is going to run for 90 minutes. Trust me, the time just flies by, and it's going to be super interactive, and the session is being recorded for future reference. Time to meet the team. So we have Giselle. She's a systems thinker and design thinker joining us from Brazil. Myself, Roma Patadia. I am volunteer at Design Hub, based out of Bangalore, India, and network joining us from London. And we are very excited to host you all in today's event. So a little bit about Design Hub. Design Hub is one of many hubs at SI Network, and we have monthly events addressing the intersection of very active community. So we'd love to have you all join us on SI portal. And today's agenda is we'll have a quick introduction, and then which will also include icebreaker, the next part. And Joss will talk about systems and complexity theories, and then explain about card game. That's going to be the most interactive part in this workshop. And at some point, we will enter into breakout rooms in group of 5 and play the game. And then we will meet back together and debrief, learn about each other's experience. And in the end, we will wrap up by understanding next steps with SI Network, how to join us and our next event, and then also get your feedback on today's workshop. Great. So time for icebreaker. The icebreaker is split into 2 parts. For the first part, feel free to pick one of these blue dots and place it within the circle. So if you identify as a designer, then place it right in the center, and then place the dot farther away based on how closely you work with design. And for the second part, please let us know your name and feel free to drop in your LinkedIn link here on the sticky note so that we can all connect with each other outside of the workshop. So let's take a few minutes to complete the icebreaker. I hope you all have the link to Miro board. It must be in the chat box. Wow, looks like we have a lot of us from design. It's a great mix of someone from technology, strategy, management. All right. So let's move on to the second part. Once we're done with the first one, drop in your name and LinkedIn account details.
Okay, should we move on,
All
Rama?
right. It sounds good. Yeah. So if you've not been able to complete this part, feel free to do it in the end of it. But thank you so much for your participation in the icebreaker. Over to you, Joss.
Great. Thank you very much, Roma. Good to see everyone here today. And yes, we've got lots of designers. We also have lots of people in research, consulting, and strategy. And here we are. Adrian's adding some additional information there. Great. So this is what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to give a little intro to our principles, system design principles, and these cards here that we'll be using. And then I'm going to explain how to play the game, and then we'll be going to breakout rooms and playing the game for most of today's session. And these are the two guides. You'll find them on the website. So if you come here and you click on this little link, it'll take you to the website and you can download the PDF. They're freely available, and they're really, as I'm going to explain now, they are trying to take key principles from complexity theory and help you learn about those, as we will be doing in our game, in our breakout rooms, and then apply them to this challenge that we'll be taking today. So you get that experience of learning and then thinking about and ideating together what this means in the context of a specific challenge. So I welcome you to take a look at those now or afterwards, and they will explain everything. Firstly, why do we need principles? Principles-based approaches offer a very flexible and kind of modular framework for people to take some ideas, learn them, and then apply them without specifying in too much detail how to do that or in what context this is, because we're obviously dealing with design in many areas. It's the design of complex systems that takes many forms. So a principles-based approach can be a very flexible kind of modular way of doing that, as hopefully you'll see as we go through. These principles are obviously about taken from complexity theory, and complexity theory helps us understand complex systems and work with complex systems, and systems design is really that, I would say, about us learning how to do design in the context of complex systems. And why would we want to do that? Because the world's getting a lot more complex, and design is evolving. There's many ways of framing that evolution. I actually just took this one here from the Design Council today. And they talk about these three kind of stages, the evolution of design. Obviously, if we go back, we had this one that was very much organized around things and products and that industrial age design, that logic of, well, it was graphics, but it was also about designing products. And towards the latter half of the 20th century, we moved into a more user-centered form of design, and service design rose, and human-centered and design thinking have become dominant paradigms over the past decades, as companies have realized that they're very effective for helping to produce products and services that people like and use and buy and so forth. So we can say that user-centered design and design thinking has become a dominant paradigm. More recently, we've become aware of the limitations of that paradigm. We've become more aware of the complexity of the systems that we have to design. As a function of globalization, sustainability, information technology, more of the systems are becoming complex and interconnected. And we're presented with this challenge of having to understand and work with and design complex systems, and designers across multiple domains have encountered that, be service design, be sustainability, sustainable design, strategic design, so on and so forth, are recognizing the need for a more holistic approach, one that works with complexity, instead of reducing everything back down to the end user and trying to make everything work for them, which ultimately creates a lot of problems in the broader systems, the supply chains, and so forth. So that's what people are asking about when they talk about systems design. Is there a new evolution in design that can help us really embrace complexity and work with complex systems, be they organizations, supply chains, information systems, and so forth? And to do that, it actually requires a new kind of logic, right? It requires us to move beyond kind of reductionist logic that helps well with focusing on individual things and their properties and so forth. To start to work with open networks, these complex systems. So what exactly is a complex system? It's a system that's elements that are interrelated to form a whole. But they differ from simpler systems. So a bike is a simple system, has few parts, low interdependency. It's not evolving as a system. It's not really alive in that way. Complex system has many parts that are interconnected, interdependent, and it adapts and evolves over time, like a company or a supply chain. And more we're being asked to design those sorts of systems, a city, a smart city, a sustainable community is an example of a complex adaptive system. And design's trying to approach that with really new principles, because complex systems operate on very different principles to, what a product, a toy. When you're designing a toy, it's static, it's stable, it doesn't really jump up and run around, and it doesn't self-organize, and it's not very multi-dimensional and so forth. We talk about complex systems, we're talking about open systems. Their boundaries not well defined, what's inside or outside the system, like these open networks. They're emergent. Patterns form and self-organize and evolve over time. The whole thing adapts. Agents and actors in it have degrees of autonomy, adaptive capacity, and so forth. They're constantly interacting, competing and cooperating. There are synergies and dyssynergies, and out of this we get these emergent kind of patterns. They're multidimensional. It's not just a physical thing. It's often many things. It's communications, it's money and finance, it's policy, and so forth. They're these open networks, and they're self-organized. They're not just static. When you put the parts together, they often, like a living system, they start to self-organize, and new things emerge. So that makes things very challenging, because a lot of our design paradigm and principles are based upon this thing just sitting there and us being able to design it. And this looks like something that is not very controllable, like an organization, or again, a supply chain, which has many actors in it and so forth. So this creates new challenges for design. It requires new ways of thinking. It requires us to embrace complexity instead of trying to dumb it down and push against it and put it into boxes. It requires us to learn some of these principles and characteristics of complex systems. There's also this aspect of non-linearity. We do a small thing here, and it gets amplified across the system and turns into a large effect, and that's very difficult for us to deal with. So these are some of the characteristics of complex systems. These are some complex system, transport system, an enterprise, Internet of Things, smart city, supply chains, all kinds of information systems. And working with those, trying to design those, requires new principles. And these are some of the principles that help us in responding effectively to complexity and how complex systems work. So our approach needs to be more holistic. And that's an important aspect of working with complex systems, because when we narrow down with an analytical view and focus on one part, well, actually that part is highly interconnected with many other parts. That's one of the aspects of complex systems. No part is really separate. It's interconnected and interdependent with many others. So if we don't step back and look at those interconnections and interdependencies and dynamics across the broader system, we miss a lot of things. So we have to take this more holistic perspective and also have this ability to zoom in and zoom out. Sometimes we need to focus on a part, sometimes a cluster of parts, sometimes the whole thing, and think about how those are interrelated. We can call that holism. We need an approach that's working with open systems that involve the contribution of the many rather than closed to only the few. So we see this a lot these days with platforms, for example, eBay and so forth, YouTube and so on. They're not closed with a few people in an organization producing the product and so forth. They're open to us uploading videos and us driving people around and forming part of a ride-sharing platform and so forth. And that's a different dynamic. They're open systems and evolving. We have to deal with this network nature of complex systems, and we need to see how they're interconnected and a more relational kind of approach, and recognizing the boundaries are kind of porous, and we need to work with that. They're evolving, constantly evolving and changing. They have these life cycles, and we need to work across the full life cycle and ultimately try and create more regenerative systems, because a lot of the systems we've developed are degenerative, and the life cycle is very linear. How can we turn that into a circle so that they can evolve, adapt, and regenerate over time? How can we work more with decentralized systems instead of always creating centralized systems that push out? Can we create open networks that are engaging users in the co-creation of these systems? So those are some of the ideas from complexity theory, and you can read all about them. I'm not going to go too much into them right now. We will be exploring them as we go, as we explore the cards, right? But you'll be able to read all about them in those guides there. I'll just touch upon a few of them that we'll be looking at now as you go into your breakout rooms and take up your cards. So the first one there was holism. A systems approach to a holistic one means we seek to understand something primarily in the context of the whole that it forms part of. Before going about changing parts, we seek to gain an understanding of the overall context within which it exists and how they're interrelated and affecting each other and the whole. So these are some of the cards, some of the principles there: holism, integration, working with patterns, recognizing the multi-dimensional, a multi-kind of level aspect of systems. So you'll be able to read about those. Open systems, as mentioned, fundamentally open. The internet, a city or social network, all open in that anyone can join or leave, and their boundary is permeable. This makes them this changes fundamentally how we should go about designing for them, as without boundaries, we do not have the same kind of control. Without capacity to directly impose order on the system, we have to work with processes of self-organization and emergence. So this kind of loss of control in complex systems that we're used to when we talk about design is an important aspect. We need to learn to work not with the assumption of we can control everything, but with the assumption that we can't, but we can discern patterns, we can influence the context, we can enable self-organization and emergence, and we need to learn how to work with all of that. So that's another principle. A relational approach, thinking about circularity, about synergies between things, about protocols that allow different things to connect and work together, like an Internet of Things system. Feedback loops become very, very important. That's relationality. This one here, decentralized systems. That they're more user-generated. We're trying to create networks and protocols that allow many parts, many modules to kind of connect in and work together, as you would designing a complex service system. It's not really one thing. It's more of like, how can we get all these parts working together in synergistic ways? And finally, this one about life cycle, and how can we design for the full life cycle so we create adaptive, flexible, resilient, diverse and dynamic regenerative systems that are not degenerative, but regenerative over their life cycle. So that's a little intro to some of the ideas that we'll be exploring today. Hopefully that gives you a little idea of where they're coming from. You're going to be learning about them as you go into your breakout rooms. And I'll just share a little bit of how that's going to work. So you see all these ideas, these principles laid out here. You can see open systems, and we've got the 4 cards. Each section has a description of what that's about. And you can see 5 sets of cards per room. We're going to break it out into breakout rooms of 5 people per room. You're going to first choose which set of cards you want to adopt. So you're going to take a sticky and you're going to type your name, whether you want, to learn about the relational approaches, decentralization, life cycle, so on, and put your name beside it, just as I've done here, or Kate has done there. So that's the first thing you're going to do when you go into your breakout rooms now in a minute. You'll see all of this listed up here. We have it on each board for you, so you'll be able to reference that. So the first thing is to put up your title there, or choose your cards. Then you want to read through the full set of cards that you have. So you're learning about those, you're getting familiar with them. And that's the text up here. And then the person at the top here is going to be the first person to apply their card around the challenge that we have today here, which is down here. So the challenge we have that we're going to be applying these cards to, and you're going to be ideating around what it means for this challenge. We've been hired by an organization to design ways to overcome silos and enable collaboration within their organization between the tech teams, design, and marketing teams. So we have these different teams. We've been hired to ideate using these ideas, these concepts, on how to get these teams working together and overcome these silos and enable collaboration. So what we're going to do is read our cards. The first person up here is then going to choose one of the cards and they're going to drag it down. And I've chosen this one, context, right? It was the second one up here. And then together for a few minutes, maybe 5, 7, 8 minutes, you will ideate on what does it mean to apply this card to that challenge? What does it mean to work with context with this challenge? So I put up some ideas here. It means working to change the company's culture. Right? Culture is the context within which the actors are choosing to collaborate or not. Communications context. Can they all join the same communications environment, for example? That might enable us here. Or down at the bottom, thinking about the physical context to remove barriers. So those are some ideas. So you would have discussed this card. So this person would have read out a little bit about the text, so you understand it, brought the card down, and then you together would have ideated on some ideas there, had a conversation to discuss that idea, what it means in this context, and the person who played it could put up the stickies to keep track of it. And then you move clockwise to the next person. So if you could keep that just to, yeah, maybe 8 minutes maximum, and then move to the next person who does exactly the same thing. Chooses their card, reads out the description, drags the card in, and I've done it here. This person, Kate, has chosen to play this card, synergies. How can we shift destructive relations to positive synergies? And then we ideated, we discussed around it. So some examples, create a systems map so that they can all see how they're interrelated and where the misalignments in expectations are and try to change things. So that's just an example. Then we're going to stay going round again, just 8 minutes or so. Next person, next person, next person. We've got about 40 minutes or so. So we'll try to get at least one round, if not 2 rounds. It's up to you kind of how fast you want to go, but please don't go too slow because we want everyone to have a voice as we go through today. Any questions on that? We're going to go into breakout rooms. Is it clear for us? Yeah, everybody clear? Do you want to type in the chat how clear this is on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 is I know nothing about what you're talking about. 10 is I really get this. This is totally making sense. 9. Oh, 3. Okay. Adrian, you need help. You can type in the chat if you have questions. Okay, good. We've got some 8s and 9s. Hopefully you're going to lead the others, and we will join you to support you when you go into your breakout rooms. So what's going to happen? You go into your breakout room. You're going to choose your card, which card, put your name, read through your text. First person up here is going to play their card. You're going to discuss it, how it applies, and then move to the next. Same again as you go around. What you do is up here. So you'll be able to keep track of that if you get a little bit confused, and we'll also join you to support you if it's unclear. So let's put some breakout rooms. And how many people do we have here? 20. So if we go 5 or 6 breakout rooms, and then we should have 5 people per breakout rooms. Okay, 5. There we go. Okay, off we go. We'll be in breakout rooms to support you. You have a room on the top of the board there. Just check which room you're in and then go to the associated board and start the game. I'm going to start a timer also so that you know when to come back again. And we'll join to share what we learned. Everybody have breakout room options? Everybody able to find what they're looking for? Okay, welcome back. We've got 10 minutes left, and we're going to take time to share a little bit of your insights and your learnings today, to see how this game was for you and to see if you did happen to learn about systems and complexity in the context of design. So room one, anybody here? Monica, Flavio, would you like to share a little bit about what happened? Yeah, Monica, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, we can. Um,
Okay, Flavio.
Monica, feel free to chime in, and also Mohammed, and who else was in my group?
Giselle,
Oda,
Oda.
Roma. So yeah, so basically we we talked about synergies. How can we shift destructive relations to positive synergies? And there we started things like show and tells, for instance, to begin to give other folks more visibility into what's going on in other departments, demo days, what are you working on? Also retrospective where people can be more open about the good things and the bad things of their collaboration, ideally with psychological safety, which is something that Mohammed brought up. And now I'm already talking about holism, which is more about this greater awareness. So there, Monica talked about creating a glossary and shared language. We also talked about how the three teams can interact together, mapping those interactions. I pasted something here from Leader Factor, which has like these degrees of psychological safety to piggyback on Mohammed's comments about that, which I think is essential. We also talked about open systems, this idea of like getting rid of these boundaries that separate us. And there we came up with like, who are you outside of work? You know, like you're a
Yeah.
human and there are things about you that I care about, but you know, we have to snap out of like the characters that we play in the theater of work and finding commonalities that are more about what makes us human. And there was also like a day in the life idea of like, you know, how does a marketing person behave day to day versus a design person? I think Monica brought up like, oh yeah, maybe you can like spend half day there, like observing how I work. Like we can do this exchange program, so to speak, between
Great,
departments and
great.
stuff like that. I don't want to like spend too much time because I know we're going around the room, but it was
Yeah.
it was fruitful.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I mean, fruitful indeed. I think you came up with some good ideas here. But let's move on for the sake of time. Room two, Simon, Tai, Kim.
You want to go ahead, someone?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. I think well, it was certainly a very interesting discussion. I think what was interesting is we came at it from a number of different perspectives. So it was quite interesting to learn and hear what others' thoughts were. So we talked a little bit about sort of self-organization in open systems and the fact that in particular sort of the growth of an organization over time leads to sort of complexity of layers and interrelationships. So that was, I think, maybe a key point that came out of that. And then when we moved on to synergies as the sort of second part that we looked at, I think it was Adrian that made the point about needing to sort of understand multiple perspectives on a particular multiple perspectives on the system so that we get a greater understanding of it, so that if we the analogy of or the example of a valley was used, and the idea that if you're in the valley, you can't actually, you're not even cognizant of the fact it is a valley until you come out of it and view it from afar. So there was that need to hear from everyone and sort of construct multiple partial views. And then we moved on briefly at the end. We probably talked too long about different things, to the idea of decentralization. And we, as you can see from the notes here, started to talk about sort of biases within different parts, but maybe that we go back to a sort of simplified view of how things might have been at an earlier stage of the evolution of the system, and see if we can learn from that to sort of move forward in a more positive way.
Great. You even have a little video stuff there. I like that. Great. So let's stay going. I think room 4 would be next. Where are we? Let's see, that's room 2 and 3. So we're over here. TH, Jasmina.
Hi.
Great. Tell us a little bit about what happened in this room, please.
Well, we accidentally created a system that looks like Kolb's learning cycle. Turns out a couple of us have an education background and kind of focused on a feedback loop that could be basically going through the steps laid out in the cards, with a little bit of an emphasis on trying to create first an understanding of how each of the departments work. And rather than trying to bring everybody onto, say, one communication style or one technological network, trying to actually instead create nodes with everyone a little bit connected to each of the existing preferred communication styles and networks. Then trying to make sure that everyone understands the entire process of the value chain or creative process, so that they can start to actually appreciate all of the other teams. Then we move through service and systems, through self-organization. The emphasis there was trying to make sure that everybody feels empowered in their own team, so that they can be the ones to bring in ideas and thoughts from other teams. Then we went on to patterns, again, kind of like with synergies, trying to make sure that everyone understands the whole process. Then through integration and reinforcing of organizational cultures, getting feedback, and then finally adding in communication protocols so that the basic workflow for each of the teams definitely going forward connects to the other teams.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Interesting stuff. Yeah, you've come up with plenty of ideas. Let's take one final room here, room 5, before we draw to a close. So room 5, who do we have here? Raina? Jennifer? CM?
I was part of room 5 as well. It's Janet speaking.
Great.
We just looked at we looked at the circularity and what that actually means in design, in the different design devs and marketing, looking at how we can actually communicate better and all that kind of stuff. So each one's kind of coming up to a different level. Then we looked at the service systems, like how could we integrate systems seamlessly to actually help that process, and create transparency and connectivity so everyone can understand where we are in the different stages of the process. And then we looked at first we looked at the multi-dimensions of the different systems, and so it doesn't only exist with designers, marketing and devs, but actually what is the impact across a wider thing, like for example employee experience, customer experience, the physical product, for example, if you are having a physical product, or so it's actually looking at a much wider thing. And then on horizon scanning, it goes even wider, looking at prospect futures thinking. So what could be on the horizon that may affect these things, and that's why we chose adaptive thinking in the end, because we probably need to understand what may be on the horizon to adapt our systems in order to be able to have a better product and a better kind of system when you're considering like for example, the technology, the economical, the social, the political and environmental adapting that we need to do for our system for the future, and working at the different scenarios and which scenario would be best for our kind of organization and company, and how we would then connect designers, marketers and developers to the new market, for example.
Amazing. No, thank you for sharing that. Well, each room was quite creative today. Congratulations, everyone. Hopefully that was helpful. Those cards, you're seeing, the core of the game, which is about learning these new ideas, these new principles, and ultimately it's trying to help us. A lot of people go about trying to take a systems approach to different things, systems change or systems design. How do we know we really are taking a systems approach? And this can hopefully help us kind of embed those ideas at the beginning in this ideation phase to ensure that we're thinking across these different dimensions, across these different ideas, not just jumping into, the design process and kind of skipping over the systems and complexity thinking. So hopefully you saw a little bit of that, give you experience of those ideas and how to apply them. I'm going to pass it over to Giselle to wrap up today.
So, Ram, we're closing our workshop today, and I just want to share quick information about upcoming events. So you have Connect and Discuss events happening on September 17th online. So if you click here on this link, you can access full information about this event. And it might be a good idea to explore our official channels to get more about SI Design Hub activities. And here you can access a website to get materials, resources, and toolkits. And here you have a YouTube channel to past events and our LinkedIn web page. So don't forget to subscribe in our newsletter to update monthly updates. And now we would love to hear from you some feedback. And you have 2 questions for this. So we'd love to know about how useful was this workshop for you. So you can share your answer here in this line. Consider 0 for not useful or 10 for very useful. And another question is, how confident do you feel about applying these ideas in your work, in your projects?